I'm Nolan, a calm 30-year-old who lives in a small town in Virginia. My life's always been straightforward. I work as an HVAC technician, live in a modest 2-bedroom house, and I truly appreciate a neighborhood where everyone still waves hello and lends a hand. It's a place that feels safe and familiar, and I've always jumped in whenever someone needed help, whether it's carrying groceries, fixing a leaky pipe, or mowing the lawn for our older neighbors. Honest, everyday living. Across the street live the Petersons, Ethan and Clara. Their home always looked perfect, like from a magazine. We weren't close, just polite neighbors who exchanged greetings and holiday waves. One afternoon, around 5:30 p.m., I realized I was missing a particular wrench. I went over to borrow one from Ethan, but something felt off. Their porch light was on, yet the curtains were all drawn. I rang the bell, waited, and was about to leave when the door creaked open. Clara stood there. Her eyes were red, her makeup smudged, and her cardigan looked almost thrown on in haste. She seemed utterly shattered. "Clara, are you okay?" I asked, taken aback. She managed a weak, fading smile. "Nolan?" I wasn't expecting anyone. My mind raced, asking about a wrench now would feel insensitive. "Sorry. Are you all right?" Clara's voice trembled. Tears welled up again. I paused, unsure, then said quietly, "If you'd like to talk, I'm here. But if you'd rather be alone, I understand." She shook her head, then stepped aside. "You can come in." Their usually pristine living room felt heavy, silent. A half-filled box of tissues sat on the coffee table next to a nearly full wine glass and an open bottle. Clara motioned to the couch. I sat, trying not to intrude. She sat across from me, gripping her hands. "He's gone," she said softly, voice cracking. My heart sank. I never imagined they'd have any trouble, let alone something like this. She took a deep breath. I found out about the cheating. And the lies. I'd known for a long time, but today, I just couldn't do it anymore. I leaned forward. "I'm so sorry, Clara. I had no idea." Her laugh was hollow as she brushed another tear away. "No one did. I kept up the appearance, the picture-perfect spouse, the tidy home, but it was all an act. I stayed because I was terrified of being alone." I let that sink in. After a moment, I said softly, "You're not a failure. It takes courage to stand up for yourself." She looked at me, eyes searching. "You really think so?" "I do," I replied firmly. "You deserve honesty. You deserve someone who treats you right." Her face softened. "Thank you," she whispered. It was the first time I'd seen a spark of life in her that evening. We stayed there for what felt like hours, talking about betrayal, pain, and the meaning of trust. She told me Ethan had been unfaithful multiple times. She had confronted him before, hoping he would change, but it never did. "I gave everything," she murmured. "And I got nothing but lies in return." "You deserve better," I said again. "You deserve respect and truth." Her posture eased, just a bit. Our conversation drifted on as the wine bottle slowly emptied and the clock ticked toward midnight. Eventually, I stood. "I should go. It's late." She walked me to the door, then paused. I offered a supportive smile, and she gave a small, grateful one back. I noticed Clara seemed caught in her own thoughts, as though torn between saying something and keeping it to herself. After a long moment, she looked into my eyes and murmured, "You can stay, if you want." There was no warmth in her tone, just quiet exhaustion. It wasn't about romance, she simply didn't want to be alone. I nodded gently. All right. I'll stay. She led me back to the couch and sat beside me. She leaned slightly against my shoulder, as if that small point of contact was the only thing anchoring her. Time slipped by unnoticed. Her breathing softened, and before long, she was asleep. I stayed there, unmoving in the still darkness, staring into the quiet. I knew something had shifted between us. Morning crept in through the curtains. I blinked and realized I hadn't moved all night. Clara was still there, peacefully asleep on my shoulder. I slowly adjusted so as not to disturb her, letting the silence settle again. Eventually, she stirred. Her eyes fluttered open, confused for a second before clarity returned. She pulled back slightly, brushing her hair behind her ear. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "No need," I replied gently. "You just needed someone." She stood with a tired smile. "I should make some coffee." I followed her into the kitchen. Despite the emotional chaos of the night before, everything looked neat, even pristine. Clara moved quietly, her actions automatic as she prepared the coffee. I said nothing, choosing instead to be a silent presence. When the coffee was ready, we sat at the small table. The only sounds were the clock ticking and the soft hum of the fridge. Clara finally broke the silence. "I can't believe you stayed," she said, clutching her mug like it was the only warm thing in reach. "I couldn't just leave," I said. "You shouldn't have had to go through that alone." She looked down into her coffee. "Ethan would have left." "Actually, he did. Every time things got difficult." I leaned back in my chair. "You deserve someone who stays," I said softly. "Someone who's there when it counts." She shook her head with a sigh. "I don't even know what I deserve anymore. I thought I had everything figured out, the house, the marriage, the future. Now it all feels like rubble." I nodded slowly. "Sometimes things have to fall apart before you can rebuild something better." She gave a tired smile. "You sound like my therapist." I chuckled. "Maybe I've just been through enough to fake some wisdom." She blinked, surprised. "Really? You always seem steady." I shrugged. "I was engaged once." She called it off 6 months before the wedding. Said she wasn't ready. I didn't think I'd recover. But life has a way of nudging you forward, even when you're not ready. We sat quietly, an unspoken understanding between us. Two people, quietly broken in their own ways. After finishing her coffee, Clara glanced at the door. "Want to take a walk?" "I just need to get out for a bit." The late morning was brisk but clear. We strolled through the neighborhood, passing familiar houses and well-kept lawns. Strangely, no one waved. It felt like the world had quietly agreed to give her space. "I forgot what fresh air felt like," she said softly. "I've been trapped in my head for too long." I watched her walk. Something had shifted. Her shoulders were looser, her steps lighter. "You're stronger than you think," I said. She smiled, a little unsure. "That's kind of you." Our conversation turned to lighter things, bad takeout meals, favorite movies, funny travel mishaps. And slowly, Clara began to laugh again. At first it was hesitant, quiet. But eventually, it sounded real, free. Just hearing her laugh made me smile. "It's good to hear that again." "I almost forgot what it felt like," she said. "It's been so long since I've felt even close to normal." By the time we reached her front steps, she looked different. Still worn and healing, but no longer buried beneath the weight of it all. At the bottom of the stairs, she turned to me. Thank you, Nolan. I don't think anyone's ever just shown up like you did. You don't need to thank me, I said honestly. I'm just glad I could be there, I said honestly. Clara looked at me, her eyes steady but her voice a little unsteady. I've spent years surrounded by people, and I've never felt this safe before. I didn't know how to respond, but I felt it too. Something quiet was growing between us. Not loud or dramatic, just honest and present. I gave a small nod. Clara, if you ever need anything, you can reach out. Anytime. I turned to go when I felt her hand gently wrap around my wrist. I stopped and looked back. Would you stay for lunch? She asked, almost shyly. It's probably too much to ask after everything, or maybe I just don't want to be alone. Her sincerity hit me right in the chest. There was no performance, just pure vulnerability. Of course, I said with a warm smile. I'd love to. We found ourselves in the kitchen making sandwiches, laughing over my poor tomato slicing skills. Conversation flowed like it had always been there. That's when I learned little things, how she loved gardening, collected vintage postcards, and despised mushrooms but somehow loved mushroom soup. Sunlight poured through the window in soft, golden beams. I felt something shift. I didn't want to leave. She didn't need to say a word. I could see it in her expression. She didn't want me to go either. It wasn't romantic. Not yet. But it was real. A connection formed from quiet understanding. When I finally rose to leave hours later, she walked me to the door. Thank you again, Nolan, she whispered. You have no idea what this meant. I'm here, like I said. Whenever you need, I replied. As I walked home, a calm settled over me. My life had always been predictable, and until now, that had been enough. But meeting Clara in the middle of her storm stirred something in me. I paused at my door and looked back at her house. I knew I'd be back. The following weeks took on a rhythm we hadn't expected. I'd drop by after work, sometimes with a coffee, other times just to say hi, or with a small bunch of flowers from the corner market. At first, I didn't even know why I did it. It just felt right. I wasn't trying to impress her, I just liked seeing her smile. And she started to smile more often. The first time I brought flowers, simple sunflowers and daisies, she held them like they were something precious. No one's ever brought me flowers just because, she said quietly, eyes welling. Well, I replied with a grin, now someone has. We spent afternoons on her porch, sipping lemonade or coffee, watching the street. Sometimes we talked nonsense, bad movies, strange food orders, funny old stories. Other days, we dug deeper, disappointments, pain, and how trust could turn sharp when placed in the wrong hands. Clara never pretended she wasn't still hurting. Her smile had returned, but her eyes still held something fragile. One evening, as spring wind rustled the leaves, I saw her staring at her wedding ring. I feel like if I take it off, it makes it all real, she said softly. I reached out and gently brushed my fingers against hers. You don't need to rush. Healing doesn't come with a deadline. She looked at me, searching. You're really good at this, she said. At what? Making me feel like I can breathe again. That hit me harder than I expected. I hadn't entered her life looking for anything, but with each passing day, I cared more. Not just about her story, or her pain, but about her. She was beautiful, yes, but it was her courage, her honesty, how she could laugh through tears and be vulnerable without apology, that pulled me in. Still, I knew I had to be careful, with her heart and mind. One night, after a long walk along the lake path, we stood beneath her porch light. There was a long silence, the kind that means something. "Would you like to come in?" she asked quietly. I paused, my heart thudding. I could see the hesitation in her eyes, one part of her wanted connection, the other part still afraid. "Not tonight," I said gently. "I don't want you to think I'm expecting anything. I'm here because I care, not because I want something from you." Relief passed over her face, but it was laced with something deeper, fear. "You really are different," she whispered. "And that's what scares me." I smiled calmly. "Then we'll go at your pace." In the days that followed, I noticed small changes. She quietly took off her wedding ring and put it away. Her laughter was louder. Her smiles lingered. She even teased me about the pancakes I ruined one morning. One Saturday, she asked me to help her plant flowers in her backyard. We knelt in the soil, laughing as we dug, while her golden retriever Rusty ran around us, occasionally stealing tools and getting in the way. "I think Rusty likes you more than me right now," Clara said, brushing dirt off her jeans with a playful smirk. I leaned back, grinning. "Can you blame him?" I teased. "I bring snacks." We sat on the lawn, sipping lemonade and admiring the mess of our newly planted garden. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours, and there was something beautiful in that. "Thank you, Nolan," Clara whispered. "For what?" "For making me feel human again." I reached out and gently traced my fingers across hers. "Clara, you've always been human. You've just been walking through fire." Our eyes met, and held. Her glance held both warmth and hesitation. Her defenses weren't all the way down, but something was shifting. I pulled my hand back slowly. I didn't want to move faster than she was ready. Later that week, I came home from work and found a small package at my doorstep. Inside was a coffee mug that read, "Best neighbor ever" in bold letters. Alongside it was a handwritten note. "You've done more for me in these past 2 weeks than I can ever express. Thank you for reminding me that kind people still exist." I stood there holding the note, feeling something inside me settle, a quiet understanding that this wasn't just about neighborly kindness anymore. I cared for her in a way I hadn't allowed myself to since my own heart had been broken long ago. Still, I knew she wasn't ready. Not completely. The next evening, we sat on her couch watching old Seinfeld reruns, Rusty curled between us, snoring softly. Clara let out a quiet yawn, then gently leaned her head on my shoulder. "Is this okay?" she whispered. "Of course," I said without hesitation. "Whatever feels right for you." Her voice trembled slightly. "I don't know where this is going, Nolan. But I don't want you to go." I wrapped my arm around her, not to possess, but to reassure. "I'm not going anywhere." Something shifted that night. We weren't just two people fending off loneliness. We were becoming something new, fragile, real, and deeply personal. I stayed a little longer, holding her as the TV mumbled in the background, our words fading into soft, sleepy ramblings. When I finally stood to leave, she watched from the door, her gaze warm but uncertain. I couldn't erase her pain, I knew that. But maybe, just maybe, I could show her what it feels like when someone genuinely stays. As I walked home beneath a sky full of stars, I found myself smiling. For the first time in years, it felt like something good was beginning. The next Friday, my heart was racing as I pulled into her driveway. In my hand were 2 plane tickets. I'd spent days second-guessing the decision. Was it too soon, too risky? But my gut told me she needed something different. A change of scenery. A breath of fresh air. She opened the door, that familiar worn smile lighting up her face. "Hey," she said. What's with that weird grin? I held up the envelope. Okay, I know this sounds crazy, but I got us tickets to San Diego. Just 1 week. No pressure. Just sunshine, some peace, and a chance to breathe. Her eyes widened. Are you serious? Completely, I nodded. I know you're still healing. But sometimes, a change of place helps you see things differently. She looked like she might say no, but then, something softened in her face. A slow smile formed. You're impossible, Nolan. I'll take that as a yes. I was kidding, she laughed, and it lit up the whole room. But yes. I'd love that. The next morning, we boarded the flight. We didn't talk much, but the silence between us felt easy. Natural. As we stepped off the plane in California, warm coastal air wrapped around us like a hug. Clara took a deep breath and closed her eyes. This feels amazing. We checked into a quiet little boutique hotel nestled against the hills, palm trees swaying outside our window. The first day was spent wandering local shops, flipping through books in a vintage store, sipping iced lattes at a sidewalk cafe. I found myself watching her, how her face lit up at desert blooms, the way she giggled at corny postcards. That evening, we dined under twinkling lights at a cozy patio restaurant, surrounded by adobe walls and palm silhouettes. The food was great, but I barely noticed it. I couldn't take my eyes off her. She looked at ease in a way I hadn't seen before. Later, as we walked beneath a canopy of stars, she paused mid-step and looked at me. Thank you, she said gently. You were right. I needed this. You deserve it, I replied. All of it. That week felt like a dream. Mornings spent hiking along quiet desert trails. Afternoons lounging poolside, sipping cool drinks, reading in the shade, or just chatting about anything and everything. One day, I caught her staring into the horizon, her face soft and serene. I never thought I'd feel peaceful again, she said. But you gave me that, Nolan. I reached for her hand, and this time, she didn't pull away. Each evening we try a different spot for dinner, or just order takeout and eat on the balcony, watching the sun dip behind the mountains. Watching the sunset over the mountains became our little ritual, that quiet punctuation mark to each day. And something began to shift in the air between us. What had started as comfort had grown into something more, something unnamed but deeply felt. On the 6th day, we rented bikes and explored the winding trails of the botanical gardens. The place was alive with color, wildflowers stretching in every direction under the sun. Clara stopped in front of a patch of yellow blooms and stared. My mom loved these, she said quietly. She used to tell me, even in the hardest places, you can still find beauty. I stepped closer, resting a hand gently on her shoulder. She'd be proud of you. Clara gave me a wistful smile. I think she would too. Nolan. I think I've finally found someone who sees me. The real me. Not the version I thought I had to be, the perfect partner, the one who holds everything together. Her words landed in my chest with weight and clarity. I wanted to say I loved her. The words sat on the edge of my tongue, but I held them. The moment wasn't about declarations. It was about being present for her. Our last night in San Diego came faster than we expected. We walked along the edge of the resort, where the desert gave way to distant mountains. The sky turned soft shades of orange and gold. After a stretch of silence, Clara stopped and turned to me. I've been dreading going back, she said. But, for the first time in years, I think I can face it. Because of you. I took her hands gently. Clara, you did this. I just had the honor of walking beside you. Her voice dropped. I'm still scared. Scared to trust, scared you'll disappear. I brushed my thumb softly over her hand. I'm not going anywhere. And then, quietly, she kissed me. It wasn't hurried or intense. It was steady, warm, filled with unspoken hope. We didn't need to say anything after. Standing beneath the stars, fingers intertwined, we knew we had crossed into something new. The next morning, we packed without heaviness. There was a quiet certainty between us. This wasn't an ending. It was the beginning of something better. At the gate, Clara rested her head on my shoulder. Thank you, Nolan, she murmured, for helping me find a part of myself I thought I lost. I kissed her hair. It's only the beginning. As the plane lifted, I smiled. I didn't know all that lay ahead, but I was ready. We both were. Back home, something in Clara had changed. That invisible weight she once carried? It was lighter now. Her steps more measured, more confident. Rusty barreled down the hallway to greet us, practically tackling her with excitement. She knelt to hug him, laughing freely. It was the kind of laughter that had been missing, pure, light, unburdened. In the weeks that followed, life settled into a new rhythm. We still had our evening walks, still ordered bad takeout, still watched old sitcoms. But something was different now. There was an ease, a closeness. We didn't have to name it, it was just there, gently binding us together. One evening on our usual trail, Clara quietly slipped her hand into mine. No hesitation. That single gesture said more than words ever could. We stopped at our favorite bench by the lake, the sky streaked with pinks and golds, the breeze soft on our skin. Clara exhaled slowly. I never thought I'd feel whole again. You were never broken, I said. Just hurting. She squeezed my hand. You have no idea what you've done for me, Nolan. I don't even know how to thank you. You don't have to. I had known for some time what I wanted to do. I'd rehearsed it in my mind 100 times. But now, I knew it was time. I rose slowly and turned to her. She looked up, curious, her expression soft. I reached into my jacket and pulled out a small velvet box I'd been carrying since we returned from San Diego. Her eyes widened. Clara, I began, my voice steady despite the thundering of my heart. We weren't looking for this. But we found it. Something real. You made me believe again, in love, in trust, in the beauty of staying when it matters most. I opened the box, revealing a simple, elegant diamond ring. Her hands trembled slightly as she looked at the ring, then at me. The stillness between us felt sacred, like the whole world had paused just for this. You've shown me what love looks like when it's quiet, when it's steady, I said. I don't need perfection. I just want real. I want you. Tears welled in her eyes, not from sorrow, but something gentler. Something healing. She didn't speak right away. Instead, she reached forward and gently closed my hand over the box. I'm not ready to say yes yet, she whispered, but I'm not saying no. I nodded, no disappointment, only understanding. We've come this far at your pace. We'll keep it that way. Clara smiled through her tears. That's what makes you different. We sat there for a long time on the bench, watching the sun dip behind the waterline, hands still clasped, hearts still open. There was no urgency, no expectations, only the quiet truth that we had found something rare. In the days that followed, life continued. There were still early mornings and grocery runs, garden mishaps, and poorly cooked dinners. But there was also laughter. touches that lingered. Shared looks across crowded rooms. The ring stayed tucked away in my drawer, not as a question hanging over us, but as a promise waiting for its moment. And one morning, many months later, I woke to the sound of Clara's soft footsteps on the porch. She stood there with the sun warming her face and the ring box in her hand. No words, just a smile. I stepped up beside her, heart still, breath quiet. She opened the box slowly, then looked up at me. "Yes," she said simply. We didn't need a big ceremony or a crowd. What we had was built on healing, honesty, and a kind of love that didn't need to shout to be heard. And in that quiet, we began our forever, not as two people escaping loneliness, but as two hearts that had found their way home.